Now, I know that Game Week 2 isn't even over yet, but that doesn't stop me making some content for you guys. So here are players to buy and avoid for Game Week 3. Now, the first player I'm going to talk about is Bryan Mbeumo, and here's what I had to say about him back in June. Yeah, we'll see how it plays out, but I think all the stars are aligning, in my opinion, for Bryan Mbeumo to have a great start to the season while we wait for Tony to return. Now, he really has lived up to at least my hype, and to be honest, I'm not in any way surprised either. I think last season he was excellent. 9 goals and 8 assists. This season, he's off to an absolute flyer. 3 goals from 2 games, obviously 2 of them being penalties. But for me, that was one of the real selling points for Mbeumo before the season started, was the fact that he was going to take penalties off of Ivan Toney while he was banned until January. And he really does seem to be playing up to that talisman role, alongside, of course, Wissa, who I also think is a great option if you're looking for a forward. But in general, I think Mbeumo's probably my pick of what was originally the 6.5 million mids. He's now 6.6. By the time this video comes out, his price might have even gone up again. But still, that sub 7 million mid category, I think he's probably the best. I know Mitoma on paper is probably the best player, but with the positions that Mbeumo's taking up, the fact he's taking penalties, Brentford aren't in Europe, he's nailed to start every game. I just think he's absolutely excellent. And upcoming fixtures as well, you compare Brentford fixtures to Brighton, they're a lot better for Brentford. Crystal Palace at home, Bournemouth at home, Newcastle away is obviously a tough one, but even then, Brentford do all right away from home against the good teams. Then they've got Everton and Nottingham Forest. A lovely run of fixtures. Obviously, 4 of those 5 being better than the other one. But yeah, I just think he's a fantastic option if you don't have him already. And with expensive midfielders not performing so well, the likes of Bruno Fernandes and Rashford, although I wouldn't be too rash on taking them out, Mbeumo's outperforming those guys so far. And I think he's a great option. And as I was saying, he showed signs of how good he could be last season. He got 17 returns in 36 games, 36 starts, which is obviously really good. And this season, he's kicked on again. Three goals already from 2 games, and I expect that to continue. Now, I've already made a video absolutely waxing lyrical about Taiwo Awoniyi. You can check it out in the description below, but I really do think that he's one of the best cheap forwards in the game. Towards the end of last season, he scored 6 goals in the final 4 games. He got 0.71 expected returns per 90, which compared to other players in the Premier League, which you can see here, likes of Harry Kane, Mo Salah, Saka, Rashford, he's better than a lot of them. I think only Salah really, he actually sort of gets less than. Oh, obviously Haaland as well, who I haven't included on this list because I don't think he's competition for Haaland. But, the expected goals and assists that he gets per 90 minutes last season, it's better than Kane and Rashford. Those are 2, much more expensive players. Obviously, Kane's gone to Bayern Munich now, but you get the idea. I think he's absolutely fantastic. And the fixtures might be tough coming up, don't get me wrong. He's got Man United at Old Trafford, then Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, then he plays Burnley away, at home, Man City away, obviously that's a tough fixture, and then Brentford at home. But I think Awoniyi is cheap enough that you could genuinely bench him for games you don't fancy playing him in. But last season he scored against Liverpool, Chelsea and Arsenal, and of course his first game of the season was against Arsenal at the Emirates, played literally 20 minutes and still bagged a goal against them. So I'm not saying he's fixture proof, but I wouldn't let difficult fixtures put me off him because he seems to be able to give pretty much any Premier League defence problems. And started off the season fantastically. 2 goals, only started 1 of the games, but I think given how good he's been, I'd expect him to be their first choice striker now. So check out the video in the description for a bit more detail about him. But Taiwo Awoniyi is definitely a player to target. My next player then is unlike me to recommend him, but I really do think that Phil Foden is a good FPL option for the future, particularly considering Kevin De Bruyne is out with a long-term injury. Bernardo's a bit hit and miss with his injuries this season. I think he's great, and you can see in his average positions against Burnley, Sevilla and Newcastle, he's basically been playing as the number 10 in behind Haaland. If you want my opinion, I think that's Foden's best position, just in behind the striker with the ability to run on and get those goals as well as creating chances in behind. He's obviously started the last 3 games as well. I'm pretty sure he's played 90 minutes in each of those games as well. He's got Sheffield United away, Fulham at home, West Ham away, Nottingham Forest at home and Wolves away. An absolutely fantastic fixture run. Of course, he's always an expected minutes risk, right? I'm not going to say that, Foden is a fantastic option for minutes. He's obviously not. There's always a risk that he could get benched, but he only started 22 Premier League games last season, but he got 11 goals and 6 assists in just 22 starts. 0.83 expected returns per 90, which, if you remember the list that we showed for Awoniyi, is competitive with pretty much all of the big guns in the Premier League. This season, a bit of a slow start in the Premier League in terms of actual returns, but he's really impressed me with how he's played, and with the fixtures coming up, you can only imagine that's going to improve. Obviously, the 2 starts he's made so far in the Prem, he's got just an assist, but I really do expect that to improve in future games, and he's definitely an option going forwards. Now, I feel uniquely qualified to talk in a bit more detail about Semenyo. Being a Bristol City season ticket holder, the club that sold Semenyo to Bournemouth, I really sang his praises at Bristol City last season. I always knew he was going to be a Premier League player. He always showed the Premier League quality. And I think this isn't the most interesting in terms of, comparing him to the players that we've just looked at before. But I think a lot of people are going to be stuck for moves to make this week. A lot of players are going to have 2 free transfers and not entirely sure what to spend that free transfer on. I think quite a lot of people have gone for 2 people up top and then a 4.5 million striker on the bench. And I wouldn't imagine you have Antoine Semenyo as your 4.5 million striker. So what I'm suggesting, if you really are stuck for transfers to make for Game Week 3 and you don't want to burn your transfer, I think Semenyo is emerging as the best 4.5 million forward in the game. Obviously, scored in his only start of the season at Anfield. You've got to think he's going to start the next game. And of all the 4.5 million forwards, he seems to be the best. And in my opinion, Bournemouth look much improved on what they were last season as well. Long gone are the days where they get smashed 9-0 by Liverpool. I really expect them to be a mid-table side and Semenyo to do decently. Obviously, his stats are nothing to write home about. He's a 4.5 million striker, but I'm simply saying I think of all the 4.5 million strikers in the game at the moment, which I think quite a lot of people's teams are relying on for their structure, I think he's the best. And rather than burning a transfer, you might well use one on Antoine Semenyo. Right, now this one might go down as a bit of a lead balloon, but my players to avoid this week, despite them playing really well at the start of the season, are Brighton. Now, I am not in any way doubting these players' ability at all. I think they're all fantastic and Brighton are looking amazing. The thing that I'm doubting really is any of these players, maybe Matoma. I'd say Matoma's probably the most nailed, and obviously Pascal Gross, but he's playing a bit deeper this season. Just look at all the options they have in attack. There's only 4 positions available to them. When they start European football, I can just see mass rotation week in, week out, and it's going to be basically as bad as Pep Guardiola and Man City, to be honest. So for the time being, I would recommend personally that you stay away from these Brighton attackers. I know they're going to do well this season, don't get me wrong, but the question is who's going to do well? Someone is going to score excellently in FPL, probably going to be Matoma. I'd say it's a bit unfair to recommend you avoid Matoma, so probably count him out of this list, but genuinely, the rest of the Brighton attackers, I know Solly March has gotten off to a good start, but he had a poor injury record towards the back end of last season, which probably makes me think his minutes are going to be managed during that European football phase. Yeah, I know they're doing good, but the last thing you want to worry about in FPL is players that aren't starting, and I think you're going to have that problem if you pick Brighton attackers. Alright, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you agree or disagree with any of these players that I've spoken about, please let me know in the comments. At the end of the day, FPL is all about people and players with different opinions. If we all had the same opinions, we'd all have identical teams. So it's important to be different, and let me know if you are. If you enjoyed the video, of course, please leave me a like rating, subscribe to the Goal and Goal channel, which should be just there, and I'll catch you in the next one.